Hands up if you're a letting agent. Hands up if you're a landlord or landlady. Excellent. Even the guy on the AV is a landlord, so this might affect you as well. Wonderful. Okay, so good afternoon, welcome. We're filming this to go on our website and going to be putting out social media next week. Don't worry, none of you are filmed, so you can relax, okay? So my name's Steve Bolton. I'm the co-founder of the Axe the Tenant Tax Campaign. I'm also the founder of a property business called Platinum Property Partners. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run through section 24, which we call the tenant tax, because unfortunately nobody really loves the landlord. But actually, if people look at this from a tenant point of view, that it's an increased cost for landlords, it's going to be passed on to tenants either directly or indirectly. So I'm going to run you through where we've been to this point in time. It's estimated that 1.4 million landlords are not aware of the tenant tax. We estimate less than 100,000 landlords are actually aware of the tenant tax. And in terms of people that have been proactive, it's less than 5,000 people. And this is a tax that comes into force on the 6th of April 2017, and then it ratchets up over the next sort of 3 or 4 years. Okay, so the effects of it in terms of rents going up and landlords selling has not been seen on the ground yet, but as I'm going to show you, there's evidence from Ireland and other places where they've tried this failed tax experiment before. It's had a devastating impact on the private rented sector. Okay, so that's really what we're going to be talking about. So I'll give you a quick bit of background, tell you about some recent progress, and then how we can help you, how you might be able to help us. So our campaign started with a judicial review with basically myself and one other landlord that took the government to the High Court. We crowdfunded about £200,000. We broke 2 legal crowdfunding records in the process, and because she's a very good lawyer, and also for the political irony, Cherie Blair represented our campaign. We got a lot of media coverage, but ultimately the judicial review was thwarted in the High Court on the 6th of October of last year. Okay, but it got us, as I say, over 1,000 media articles. All of the mainstream press covered it, the big TV channels. We had a lot of coverage behind it, and it really did a great job of raising awareness for landlords, for letting agents, and just generally with the general public. The Telegraph, for example, ran an ongoing campaign, which is still going to this day. So sometimes by losing a battle, you find a way to win the war. And this was really the case. We've not given up just because the law said no, we could not proceed. In fact, the judge who ruled on the High Court ruling basically said, whilst in law we didn't have a case, the government has a case to answer economically, socially, and politically. All right, and it's very, very true. I've met with the housing minister. I've met with the chancellor about a month ago, Philip Hammond, had 10 minutes with him one-to-one, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a second. So this is a failed tax experiment. It's happened twice before. In the late 90s in Ireland, over a 3-year period, rents went up by 50%. Landlords exited the market. And this was a policy brought in by a guy called Peter Bacon, who wrote the Bacon Report in the late 90s. I spoke directly with Peter Bacon, and the measures that he proposed to the government, he was an economic advisor to the Irish government. The measures that he proposed were meant to cool the housing market in Ireland at that time in terms of the capital values, the prices of houses going up. And he admitted that an unintended consequence of this particular policy, which is very much the same as the one we have over here, was that rents went up by 50%. Okay, it caused devastation in the housing market in Ireland, and our government have essentially tried to copy the same thing. Not to be outdone, the Irish government thought they would try it again just over a decade later. And what's actually been really interesting is 10 days ago, the Irish are talking about a U-turn. So this is the Irish housing minister. And basically, they're now looking to entice private landlords back into the rental market because they realise the policies that they've created have absolutely devastated the market, and landlords have been fleeing in their masses. So as of about 10 days ago, tax breaks for accidental landlords are now being proposed by the Irish government to keep properties in the rental market and boost supply. And my crystal ball says that in 2 or 3 years' time, this is what's going to be happening with the British government. They don't realise the extent of the devastation they're causing with Section 24. So the Irish government, to alleviate the rental crisis, are talking about reducing the tax rate on rental income and tax reliefs for accidental landlords. They want to get better. Tax relief for restoring and renovating property, because obviously if landlords are paying more in tax, one thing they can do is put up the rents. The other thing they can do is they can save money on lettings agent fees. They can also save money by not doing as much renovation and refurbishment. Okay, and they're looking at restoring the 100% tax relief on mortgage interest, all right, which is exactly what the government are proposing to ratchet up over the coming years, and it starts next week, as I say, on the 6th of April. So that's a little bit of background. In terms of a progress report, after the judicial review, we formalised a coalition of which ARLA and David Cox and the organisation have been great supporters. We brought together the National Landlords Association, the Residential Landlords Association, as well as the Scottish Association of Landlords. So those groups represent about 150,000 letting agents and landlords across the country, who in turn provide housing for about 1 million tenants. All right, so significant sort of resources. It's great to see the industry collaborating and working together. We've got large chains of letting agents on board, lots and lots of individual landlords, but ultimately we need more awareness and we need more support for this campaign. So those of you that are landlords, what can you do? The one thing that a lot of people are either starting to do or will be doing is increasing rents. Okay, it's very sad. Most landlords, as we all know, don't put up rents like a big company does on an annual basis. It's not something, if you've got a good tenant and they're paying rent and they're looking after the property, most landlords take the view that they'll put up the rents when there's a new tenancy, when there's a changeover of tenants. Okay, so a lot of landlords are considering increasing rents. That's obviously an option. A lot of landlords are selling up. The National Landlords Association, Richard Lambert's over there, NLA have done some fantastic work, and they've estimated that about 1 million, is it 1 million properties or 1 million landlords? David? About 1 million properties, by the time this comes into full effect, will have left the private rented sector, will put up for sale essentially. Okay, incorporating. Obviously, people that own existing properties and portfolios, you've got capital gains tax, you've got stamp duty, so it's not a practical option for most people to consider. Okay, but certainly I'm not an accountant, so take tax advice on anything like that, and be wary of, sort of schemes that are out there that said, oh, you can incorporate and avoid stamp duty and capital gains tax. Take advice from a professional, from an accountant, on your own personal circumstances. The other thing that we're seeing is people are changing strategy. They're either not buying as many properties, they're diversifying into higher yielding strategies like HMOs, houses in multiple occupancy. All right, so it's very much, I can't give blanket advice. All right, it's for each individual to take advice and guidance on their personal circumstances. Contact the landlord bodies, the RLA, the NLA, and contact your own accountant. So we and all of the associations, all of the coalition stakeholders have met with senior politicians. I personally had 45 minutes with Gavin Barwell last year, 10 minutes with the Chancellor of the Exchequer about a month ago. And the view from government is very clear that firstly, they don't believe this is a problem. They say there's a lot of scaremongering going on. We've not seen the rent rises. We've not seen landlords selling up in their masses. So the NLA, the RLA and others are working on providing the real hard data, the empirical case, to really be able to go back to government and show them that this is going to have a devastating impact on the private rented sector. It really is. There's mass unawareness going on. The politicians are focused on generating revenues. That's the key theme behind this policy. We have a massive deficit and they need to improve the bank balance. Essentially, it's the same way as a company. If a company has got a lot more, a lot of debt, a lot of expenses, you need to raise revenues, and that's what the government are trying to do. All right, so they don't think it's going to be a problem. They need the money that it's going to generate, and it's going to take a long, hard effort by a lot of organisations and individuals to get them to change their view. One of our supporters also had half an hour with Theresa May about a month ago. So what we need people to do, we'll come on to this in a minute, is actually meet your MP. Go out there and meet your MP. There's nothing more valuable that you can do than actually write to them and go and meet them face to face. And we'll talk about the support we can give you if you want to do that. So we genuinely believe, like most things, that there's a pendulum. You know, the private rented sector, private landlords were, you know, the darlings of government. We provided millions of extra houses over the last 15 years. And actually, the pendulum has swung back. So the government, the media, as I said earlier, nobody loves a landlord, unfortunately. Not quite true. I know my tenants, you know, think quite kindly of me because I'm providing them with affordable, good quality housing, and most of you that are landlords are in the same position. But unfortunately, from a government perspective and from a media perspective, it's very easy to bash providers of either letting agencies or private housing. And a bit like the financial crisis, if you remember, you know, if you had a pulse, you could essentially get a mortgage. It was very easy to get finance. We had a financial crisis. The pendulum swung back the other way. And I think very much a similar things going on. So we're at the edge of the curve, if you like, where private renting, landlords have got a bad rap. In time, as it's done in Ireland, it's going to come back and hopefully rest in a more central position. So how can we help you? How can you help us? So the first thing you can do is help us reach the unaware or the confused. All right, some research show 1.4 million people, 1.4 million landlords are not aware of this. Personally, having worked and campaigned in this area for the last sort of 15 months very actively, I think that is a very low estimate. I think the number is actually much, much higher. Even today, I'm speaking to letting agents, I'm speaking to landlords. So watch section 24. It's not going to affect me. It's not going to affect my landlords. You know, it's not true. It's been promoted by the government in a way that is actually very hard to understand. You know, it only affects 1 in 5 landlords. I'm sorry, that's a heck of a lot of people. You know, that's about 400,000 people that potentially is going to affect. So help us reach people that are unaware or confused. And we estimate only about 5,000 people are proactive, i.e. they're supporting ARLA, the RLA, the NLA, our own campaign. We had about 2,000 people that donated to the cause. All right, so there's a very small number of people that are proactive. If this affects you, I know we've got some great supporters of the campaign here that are very active on social media, that they volunteer for a number of things that we're doing. So get involved, come and speak to us afterwards, get involved through the website. So we have a campaign website. It's got a countdown clock on it. You can see there's only 8 days to go at the time of recording this. All right, that's when it actually starts, is on the 6th of April 2017. Lots of resources on that website. Contact your local MP and actually meet with them. So the number one thing that you can do that will have most value to the campaign is get in front of a politician. There's 2 links there. Who is my MP? And contact your MP. They link directly through to the RLA and the NLA website, where they've got lots of resources. You can find out, you can do a search, you can find out who your MP is. Okay, so it needs to be your MP, not necessarily the housing minister or Chancellor of the Exchequer, but go on. If you're nervous about it or you've never done it, we've got template letters. We can give you some coaching, or if you want somebody to go with you, we can probably arrange for that to happen as well. All right, getting in front of your MP, the most valuable thing you can do. There's also some documents on there, which if you're letting agents, please spread them far and wide through your landlord customers. All right, there's the case against Section 24. It's a great document to take into a meeting with an MP or to give to landlords. We've also got flyers. There's a variety of support materials on there. Write to your landlords. If you don't know what to say, we can provide, you know, some template letters that you can modify. But if you're a letting agent, I'm writing to let you know about a new tax that goes live in April. Section 24 may result in you paying a great deal more tax if you own property in your own personal names and if you have a mortgage on it. All right. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we've got template letters you can write to landlords. And a lot of landlords have been writing to tenants. Now, we're not proposing that everybody puts their rent up on a fixed date, but the reality is people are making individual decisions to put up their rents. Okay, and if you are one of those individuals, then this has been proved to be, a strategy where you can write to tenants and just explain the reason. Tell them that you've not put your rents up for so many months or so many years, which is the case. All right. Tell them that, from a tax point of view, you've got choices. You can put rents up, you can actually sell your property portfolio, which would result in them having to find new homes. And a lot of our critics will say, oh, landlords, you can't change the rent. The rent is determined by market forces. Well, if a landlord is offering below market value rents, or a tenant, maybe they're paying market rent, they've got to find a new deposit. They've got to pay a month's rent in advance. They've got to get all their stuff moved. Okay, all of those things, it's hassle, it costs time and money from a tenant's perspective. All right, so even if they're paying the same rent somewhere else, if they have to move out of a property that's being sold, all right, it's going to have a negative financial impact on the tenants. And we've been encouraging landlords that are putting up rents to write to their tenants and also tell their tenants to contact their local MP as well. All right, and if you want to, you can mention the details of Shelter. Let Shelter and Crisis know, who are two organisations who purport to be on the side of tenants. They don't think this is going to be a problem. Okay, Shelter actively have been promoting and supporting this as a tax policy. They don't think this is going to be a problem, and it's going to be a problem that's going to come home to roost in a few years' time. So those of you that are active on social media, please join our Facebook group, get involved, comment, share via social media. And we have a professional PR firm, lobbying campaign, donation website that's live and running. That's linked to on the Axe the Tenant Tax website. All right, but the main thing really I would urge you to do is understand it if you don't already, if you're part of the unaware. Please help us make more people aware of the campaign. And if you want to get more involved and you want to help, please come and have a chat with me or one of the team today, or go and visit our website.